We actually forecast growth this year to pick up to 5.2% from 3% last year. In contrast, the global economy is doing the reverse. We actually expect global growth this year to fall from 3.4% last year to 2.9% this year. So strong growth in China is actually providing a welcome lift. In terms of what's driving the growth in China, I think really the key word is a rebound. What we're seeing is the lifting of the dynamic zero COVID policies late last year has really created the conditions for growth to take off, especially for consumption. And I think the three big headwinds, one is COVID. I think the pandemic has taught us that it's very hard to predict. So there's always a risk of either another wave in China, another wave globally. That's one risk. I think a second risk in China relates to the real estate sector. And what we've seen is that the real estate market here, under government policies, is undergoing a adjustment to a more sustainable market. And I think a challenge as it adjusts is to avoid a disorderly adjustment. Third risk factor is external. One is that we see for global growth, we see the balance of risks tilted to the downside. A fancy way of seeing that a risk is that demand for Chinese exports could fall. A second risk is what we like to call geoeconomic fragmentation. We're really at a point in time where we're seeing fragmentation risks undoing decades of progress in global integration. So I think here, the challenge for the global community is instead of fragmenting, the global community really needs to renew its spirit of international cooperation. There's really two channels that China's growth can affect the world. The first one is just mechanical. China accounts for just under 1/5 of global GDP. So China's growing at 5.2%. That means China's contributing 1 percentage point to global growth. But we forecast global growth to be just under 3% this year. So China mechanically is actually contributing 1/3 to global growth this year. Actual more important part was the one that you're mentioning, which is as China grows faster, it buys more goods from other countries. So that's a spillover effect. So it lifts up other countries' growth. We found when China grew 1 percentage point faster, that other countries' growth picked up by 0.3 percentage points. And that is basically from China buying more stuff from them. Countries that had more trade links with China actually had a higher benefit than those with smaller trade links. And it's not just good, it's also, you can think of outbound tourism. So Chinese traveling abroad is a big lift for economies that rely on tourism. And I think all this really just highlights that kind of robust and sustainable growth in China is good for China. It also provides a welcome lift to the global economy.